The following episode of Crusade for Myth Drannor is adapted from Pudding Faire by Will Doyle, Sean Merwin, and Cindy Moore. The crow of a rooster awakens the sleepers from their slumber, followed by the sound of a brass band cranking up.
Roll up for the Pudding Faire!
Cries a voice from the street below. Peering out of the inn's window, they see a crowd of happy halflings and gnomes bustling toward a fairground on the village green. It is 7 o'clock in the morning, on the day of the annual Honeypuddle Pudding Faire. Túrendil immediately begins to plan. Knowing that they can't hope to contend with the avatar of a god, they should start with spreading out to prevent all the misfortune that they know will happen, followed by finding a way to intervene when Lale confronts Urdlen. With a plan of action in place, Jynx agrees not to drink themselves into a stupor and take action to help the village. Túrendil rushes to prevent the town crier from falling in the mud, while Rilyanasse once again goes to rescue the puppeteer from the wagon accident. Massul hustles across the fair to the wrestling ring to prevent Ringo from breaking his leg, while Jynx tries to set up Maisley with Wellington, only this time not drunk. Afterward, Massul goes to rescue Oinkers the piglet, while Rilyanasse visits the Herbalist, only to notice that her wagon is not in its place. Just then, the party hears a massive crash and commotion of the crowd near the potter's kiln. The party rushes that direction to find the potter despairing in front of his kiln, which has slipped off its platform and cracked. Jynfar Clayfoot says they had saw tall folk just on the other side of the fence arguing, and the thunderclap was a spell one had cast at the others, which caused his kiln to shift. He claims they scarpered off after seeing what they'd done. Massul and Jynx stay to help him wrestle his kiln back onto the base, and Jynfar uses patching clay to repair the kiln. Túrendil goes to rescue Oinkers since Massul is occupied, finding himself a good throwing stone and sitting back to watch the pig wrestling. Rilyanasse swings by the herbalist's cart to find it still missing. Suspicious, the ranger goes down the road out of town and finds the cart, noticing that sinister figures have appeared in the carvings on the wagon. She searches around the cart, finding by the door human-sized boot prints and signs of a struggle. Alarmed, she goes to gather her companions, finding Massul and Jynx at the eel-eating contest rescuing Porter Swartfort, and Túrendil himself wondering where the wagon is, having come to buy the nettle poultice for the child. The party hustles into the woods to where the elves know the bandit camp to be, but en route they are greeted by a pair of centaurs, who demand they halt, weapons drawn, wanting to know their business. Rilyanasse explains that they are in pursuit of bandits, which they accept and let the adventurers go on their way, wishing the blessings of the Hexad upon them. After some more brief talk of goings-on in the woods, the adventurers hurry on their way. Arriving at their destination without further incident, the four spy a handful of men standing over the missing herbalist as she tends to one of their own, laid out on a mat near the fire. Rilyanasse creeps through the underbrush, spying several snares that have been set between the road and the camp of the ne'er-do-wells nearby. Alert and ready for a fight, the rest of the party joins her a bit closer as they plan to engage the gang of humanoids and rescue the missing halfling. Jynx advances through the woods, silent as a mouse, while the remainder creep forward and Rilyanasse sets one of the snares off to draw away some of their foes. Two of the tired and dangerous-looking humans advance, the wind carrying their conversation to listening ears as they complain about not wanting the deal offered by that crazy old gnome. "Get gone, you old coot! We don't need any short help or rotten breath creeps!" Jynx fires a shot to the west, drawing the attention of those remaining at the makeshift camp, putting the remainder on alert. Túrendil steps forward from the trees, addressing the two Black Iron gang members who had come to investigate the noise from the snare. "Release the woman," he commands. Massul backs him up, stepping out of the brush with his hammer hefted.
You heard the man. Don't make this get any worse,
He growls, with Rilyanasse emerging where she can be seen as well. A fight seems inevitable as those in camp answer by standing, cursing or spitting, and drawing their weapons. Rill calls out to Arabella, who freezes when asked if she needs their help. She takes aim at the woman near the herbalist, and Ellen Peelin is directed to attack the same. Crossbow bolts and spells fly toward the party, with sling bullets coming from Jynx in the underbrush in return. Túrendil's offer to accept surrender or negotiate is met with a slur from Krollsmark, which the elf answers by charging into combat. The Black Iron gang pile onto the Priest of Corellin with a nod from their apparent leader. A spray of color incapacitates Rilyanace's owl companion. Combatants dance around each other, blades find chinks in armor, members of the Black Iron gang snaring themselves in their own traps, as Massul, Rilyanasse, and Túrendil fail to gain the momentum as the bandits pile onto them. A word from Sephi the wizard leaves Jynx prone, and the bandit descends on the halfling with a knife. An onslaught of attacks leaves Massul staggered on the cusp of unconsciousness, Túrendil wounded, and the party mounting an ineffective counterattack. As the fight drags on, our heroes begin to find their momentum, utilizing the Black Iron Gang's own traps against them as they lure the bloodthirsty brigands into the snare-ridden foliage. Holding out long enough for their luck to turn around, the four begin to make headway in the combat. Jynx, after trading nicks with Sephi, finishes off a fleeing Black Iron brigand. Túrendil goes down to another slice from Krollsmark, while Massul crushes the Black Iron Gang wizard beneath the weight of his hammer. Rilyanasse rushes past Krollsmark to heal the downed priest of Corellon, while Elempilin shakes off the effect of her magical incapacitation to savagely attack a nearby brigand, ending his life. With the momentum of the fight firmly in their favor, the party wraps up the combat, making a prisoner of Mel, the Black Iron Ganger who had surrendered after being rendered helpless and ensnared. Arabella Dent is grateful beyond words, inviting the party to join her at her wagon where she can treat their wounds. The survivor is interrogated, where it comes to light that they are on the run from the Red Plumes. The four mend their wounds and set out to return to the Pudding Faire, intent on righting the wrongs that remain looming over the day, and hoping to arm themselves with more ammunition to show Nanny Cowslip the truth of what's happening. Rill approaches the old maid first, who crows, "You've been a good little girl, lassie. Have you come to earn some jelly beans?" Rilyanasse makes small talk with the old woman, eventually steering the conversation to Patcher Moldwarp. The good nanny indicates she knows who the ranger speaks of. "A boor, crass, and perhaps a touch cruel, but so some are," she comments on the mean little prospector. The she-elf continues the line of conversation, conveying that she and the three other party members have lived this day twice already. Pressed for proof, Rilyanasse tells of the upcoming perils of the festival, backed up by the deeds of her allies. The now five convene, and Nanny Cowslip reveals her divinity. She is Sirilale, the Hearthkeeper, halfling goddess of home, hearth, and hospitality. She first asks Massul, Túrendil, Jynx, and Rilyanasse to find the cause of the curse, and is surprised to find they already have the answer for her, the gnome deity of greed, bloodlust, and hatred, Urdlen. With knowledge that her foe is the crawler below, she considers and asks that the heroes can aid her with a plan. She tells the group that her divine power, great as it is, cannot dispel Urdlen's curse outright or beat him in a duel. She proposes that the heroes follow her into the woods and attempt to distract the crawler below, suggesting that challenging him to a riddle game, trading insults, or any other shows of bravado are likely to keep his attention long enough for her to work. She needs a full minute to complete the banishment ritual. Like clockwork, Patcher Moldwarp turns up at the marquee at 6 p.m. Even shorter than the day before, he goes straight to it. "Let's get this over with, fatty!" and immediately turns the mayor into a frog without provocation, before heading toward Threepenny Wood. Nanny Cowslip and our heroes set off in hot pursuit, following the trail that Urdlen has taken the past couple of days. Before catching up with the gnome, they come across a giant constrictor snake choking a female goblin to death. The goblin gasps out something, which Nanny Cowslip translates as a plea for mercy. Taking that as enough, Túrendil rushes the animal, but it deftly dodges around Nephilium as he strikes. Opting for blunt arrows, Rilyanasse looses against the snake to Nanny Cowslip's praise, who observes that Urdlen would sense a killing. The goblin struggles but fails to slip free as Jynx moves up, confused as to what is going on. Massul's hammer fails to find purchase as the snake continues to crush the unfortunate goblin, who goes limp. With Nanny Cowslip distracting the animal, Túrendil manages to land a solid blow. Rilyanasse steps up to gain a better beat on the creature and lands a blunt arrow straight on its head, followed by Jynx's sling. Having had enough, the snake flees. Túrendil calls upon the power of the Seldarine to stabilize the goblin, before digging out a scroll and healing the poor creature, who gasps to consciousness. She begins babbling in the tongue of goblins, which Nanny Cowslip translates as an introduction and thanks, saying that she had been out here playing with her pet snake when it suddenly grew tenfold and attacked her. The goblin speaks quickly, claiming to have seen Patcher Moldwarp pass in the company of creatures that Cowslip says match the description of skulks. Hurrying along, the group quickly catches up to the disguised avatar of Urdlen as night falls. Much like before, Nanny Cowslip demands to know what magic Patcher Moldwarp used to turn Mayor Barleydew into a frog, but now Urdlen immediately accuses her of being Sirilale and reveals himself. noting that while he couldn't get the muscle he wanted to deal with Cirolale's friends, the skulks he brought would have to do. Cirolale tells the heroes to go forth, not starting her banishment ritual until she's sure Urdlen is distracted. Eschewing her bow, Rilyanasse produces something she carries but rarely uses anymore, her father's lute. She begins flighting with him as he makes sarcastic remarks about a musical accompaniment to their doom. Massul begins mocking Urdlen about how good the pudding he cannot have is, while Túrendil blithely insults him. Urdlen rages at Massul's insolence, yelling that he'll have that pudding, and ordering his minions to attack. Seeing that he's paying her no mind, Cirolale begins casting her spell of banishment. Túrendil is startled to find himself under attack from a skulk, but the creature's knife skitters off his armor. He yells an insult at Urdlen about having no better to do his dirty work, as another tries and fails to do similar to Massul. The dwarf catches another trying to slip past him to menace Rill, and serves it a mighty blow with his hammer. Unfazed by the beardless insult and seeing he's onto something, Massul makes a show of picking something out of his beard, claiming it to be a bit of the fair's pudding. Túrendil blesses his sword to get some light on the skulk menacing him, taunting the gnomish deity with the greater power of the Seldarine. Urdlen again focuses on Massul and the pudding, raging about his pudding and launching into a riddle game, while making arcane gestures that Túrendil isn't able to identify, but believes to be some form of creation magic. Massul laughs at the Avatar's riddle, calling it foolish child's play, for the answer is clearly a tinder twig. Urdlen puffs up his cheeks in anger, and Massul notices that his boots have suddenly become filled with matchsticks. The skulks ineffectively continue trying to knife our heroes as Túrendil, true to his word, swings an Aphelium at one of the shadow creatures menacing Jynx. Jynx takes advantage of the opportunity and stabs the skulk in the gut as it weaves around the elf's strike. Moldwarp scowls at Jynx calling his minions worthless and spits another riddle at them. Rill shoots the skulk menacing her, while Illimpilin sinks both talons into another, which falls to the ground, pierced through the vitals. Massul brings his hammer down on another. Túrendil swears an oath of retribution and brings an Aphelium down on yet a third skulk, as Jynx argues about whether Urdlen's statement even constitutes a riddle. With Urdlen yelling that the answer is a bank, suddenly Jynx's gold bursts from her pouch and shoots out toward everyone in the clearing. Jynx and Túrendil trade jabs off each other about Urdlen's inability to fly because he digs. One of the skulks manages to land a blow on Jynx, but it's absorbed by the blessing of one of Nanny Cowslip's jelly beans that they had eaten earlier. Massul quips on Urdlen's assumed name, calling him Moldwimp and taunting him about his unwillingness to do his own dirty work. Abandoning fighting the skulks so clearly beneath his notice, Túrendil challenges Urdlen's choice of minions and threatens the wrath of the Seldarine. Dodging behind one of the remaining skulks, Jynx lays it low with an expert strike from their dagger. Urdlen claims to Túrendil that he has no fear of the Seldarine and fires off another riddle. Rilyanasse laughs as he dodges another clumsy swipe from a skulk, answering Urdlen that his riddle, as well as its answer, is a joke. Massul taunts Urdlen that all his efforts to gain the pudding by force have failed, no matter how many times he has made the day repeat, while Túrendil agrees with Rill's answer to the riddle. Jynx rams their dagger home on one of the remaining skulks, emphasizing Túrendil's jab about the god's choice of servants. Frustrated, Urdlen fires off another riddle. Massul questions why Urdlen even wants the pudding if he's never tried it to know it's good, Túrendil commenting on the irony before answering the riddle, a hole, and suggesting that the mole god go back to his. At that, Cirolale finishes her ritual. A cascade of magic bursts forth from her and wraps up the form of Patcher Moldwarp. He is briefly revealed as a pale, hairless mole, spouting ineffectual curses at all present as he is sucked under the ground. "It's over," she says, seeming to shrink as she resumes the form of Nanny Cowslip. They waste no time and return to the festival to get into the famed pudding of the Pudding Faire. On the walk back, Nanny Cowslip and Jynx have an extensive discussion in the halfling tongue on subjects unknown to the elves. Rilyanasse and Túrendil banter between themselves about the wrath of Urdlen, and whether it would be worse than that of Rill's mother is Silme. After a night spent in good cheer with the halflings of Honeypuddle, the next day dawns with the fair over. All back to normal, our heroes set out down the road to return to Aschabenfurt. Thus concludes Pudding Faire, but our adventures are far from over. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tune in next week as we investigate the ghost of Galith's Roost.